Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Are you blissed? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Yes.
Me too. Me too. So great to hear your voice, Dr. Shealy. Anything you'd like to mention before we get started? Anything that's high on your list?
Well, I do think we need to remind people about the erratic nature of the electrical grid.
You had a number of power failures in the Springfield Village over the last couple of weeks. I've seen your emails. I could hear your frustration. I could see the smoke coming out from your area. I think that was you.
Well, it happens all over the country every once in a while to bits and pieces of a community, etc. And of course, if you live in a rural area, as we do, and you do, you have to know that you have to have adequate backup. And I don't know what you've got a wonderful solar system, but I don't. I do have a diesel electric converter, and I've had it since 1999, and I've had to use it twice. And this summer, it's been out several times, but it hasn't been long enough that I turned it on. But in case of true emergency, for instance, I have 2 big freezers full of vegetables that have to take me for 6 months out of the year. If the electricity went off, even in the winter, I would need to do something with all those frozen vegetables. I'd have to can them. And I could run my electric stove to can them by turning on my diesel generator.
Okay. Would you like some comments?
Of course.
Okay. All right. So here's the rub. If you as you mentioned, the electricity will go out. There's no question about that. It's just a question of when, for how long, and how often. We know it's going to go out. The issue of the refrigerator and freezer is the one that many people have. It's quite widespread as a concern. In the winter, what you can do is you can put, if it's freezing cold outside, you can take those items and put them in some kind of a box and put them outside. But you don't want them to be on the concrete or on the grass. You want them to be where animals can't start finding them and digging into them. So if you keep them in the shade and you keep them covered up, and the weather's cold, you'll be okay. But that's not the case in the summertime. So what do? The answer is you have a generator, as you do and as we do. But you don't use it often, but you do use it. And when we lived in Virginia, the power was out for 11 days because of an ice storm. The ice got so heavy on the electric power lines, ice begot ice begot ice begot ice, and it got so heavy it broke the power lines. There's just so much weight strung across these power lines, overhead power lines, that they couldn't take it. So they broke. And the road was so slippery that road crews couldn't get out there. It was just maybe 1/4 of an inch of ice on the roads, but on the power lines it was like an inch. Well, a friend of the family died because of no electricity. It literally froze to death. Because people live in rural America. They're used to taking care of themselves, but they still depend on electricity for things like water, because we have water wells, and you need 240 volts or 120 volts to run those water wells. And a lot of people have heating systems, whether they have an oil burner or a heat pump or a gas furnace, they still have blower motors that are used to circulate either the water or the air. Some of them have computer controls, and the computers will run energized relays, so the relays will come on, the pumps will come on, the blower motors will come on, and so forth. So just about everything that we use for heating, all the heating systems, require electricity, whether it's gas or propane or heating fuel or whatever. Even our outdoor wood furnace, which operates entirely on wood, still has a circulator motor that circulates the hot water into the house, and then in the house there's a blower motor. So we have two electric motors that run the heating system. Even though they're small, we still have two of them. So the idea, when you consider being self-sufficient and prepared, is to minimize your dependence on electricity. Minimize it. So what can you do if you have a blower motor or a circulator that circulates water for heat? Well, you can get an inverter. Oh, let's say a 1,500-watt inverter, and you can hook it up to your car battery using jumper cables. Literally, I've got one in our garage. It's a 1,700-watt inverter, and what that does is it converts 12 volts DC, car battery, into 120 volts AC. It's got a couple outlets on it. And I took an old pair of jumper cables and I cut the ends off. So I have just one red end and one black end cable clamps. And the other ends I connected to this inverter, because you can buy jumper cables for $15 now, and they'll be quite adequate. And then if you have an emergency, you go to your car, you hook up the jumper cables that are connected already to your inverter, and then you've got two outlets that can power things like a freezer, like a refrigerator, but not both at the same time. It will not power your electric hot water heater. It will not power your electric stove, but it may power your oil burner or your gas burner. So you can do that if you have prepared in advance. You've got your electric heating system. Some of them, today, they wire electric heating systems not hardwired, but they're wired with a heavy power cord. And that's usually 120-volt power cord. You can plug that into your inverter and you're good to go. But make sure you know how this all goes ahead of time so that you're not fishing around in the dark saying, boy, I should have figured this out before. So those are my thoughts. But to minimize your dependence on the electric grid, which I suggest you do, everybody, electric stoves, they used to be great. We used to have them. But here at our farm, we now have a propane stove. And in Virginia, I got rid of our electric cooktop and in favor of a gas propane cooktop. Why? Because a cooktop can use 5,500 watts, and you won't be able to power that most of the time with a generator. Now, you might, Dr. Shealy, with your diesel generator. I haven't seen it, but I have a feeling it's big enough to do that. But most generators are not big enough to run a hot water heater, electric hot water heater, nor an electric stove, nor a heat pump, nor air conditioning.
Well, in the winter when we had that long freeze of a week or two, we actually were able to use our electric stove and refrigerator.
That's impressive, because you must have a pretty substantial generator to do that. Because when I was in Virginia, we had a 4,400 watt, 8 horsepower, gasoline powered generator. It was made by a company called Homelight, and it was a typical big box store style generator, and it was loud. It used a lot of fuel. It used a little over a gallon of gasoline per hour. And I had it hooked up so that I could just plug a heavy cord into it, and then I could run whatever I wanted to run on the house. So I thought, well, let's try this and see if it will run a 5,000-watt hot water heater. I flipped on the breaker for the hot water heater, and the generator stalled immediately. It didn't work. So then I tried, let's try one burner on the electric stove. Let's see if that works. Turn that on. Stalled immediately. So that was my experience with a small gasoline-powered generator and the hot water heater and the electric stove.
I think mine is a 15,000.
Yeah, that's why. 15,000 watts. Yes. Yeah. 15,000 watts. That makes sense, because your stove is about 5,000 watts. So if you fire up that stove, you're only using 1/3 of the capacity of the generator. And actually, if your generator is rated properly, the way we try to rate things in the United States, not in like China or Japan, it's probably rated for actual running power, whereas the Chinese and the Japanese rate much higher than the actual capacity of the device. So, for example, they used to have stereo systems, and we would, in the United States, we would rate ours in what's called RMS watts, root mean square watts. And the Japanese used to call theirs IHF, or peak power. Peak power is like instantaneously it might produce 200 watts for like a nanosecond. But in reality, it might produce 12 watts. Well, in America, we would say, well, it really produces 12 watts, period. We wouldn't say, well, for an instant that you'll never be able to hear because it's so short, it could produce 200 watts. So what I'm saying is some generator manufacturers lie, and I wouldn't trust the Asian manufacturers at all. Maybe Honda, maybe Yamaha. Other than that, I wouldn't trust the no brands because they tend to lie about the capacity. So what I'm saying is 15,000 watts, yeah, absolutely. That's a pretty big diesel generator. And 740, here's a way of looking at it, class. 746 watts is 1 horsepower. So you can do the conversion. So if it's 10 horsepower, 7,460 watts. 1 horsepower, 746 watts. So you've got a pretty substantial generator. You're looking at about 20 horsepower, Dr. Shealy. And that's big, because that would be what the generator engine would have to produce. So, for example, if you looked at a tractor that was rated 40 horsepower, that would not be 40 engine horsepower. That would be 40 horsepower at the power takeoff at the back of the tractor. So a 40 horsepower tractor might actually be 36 or 34 horsepower. So for you to have 20 horsepower turning the actual generator by the engine, that's a pretty substantial generator. You're not going to put that in your trunk of your car.
No, it has its own little building.
Yes, that's exactly
and
right.
We actually built it in 1999 before the 2000 fiasco.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what the brand name of it is?
All I know is, believe it or not, it does come from China. I remember that.
Okay, so you might have a China diesel.
Yeah.
Back then, there was a company in California that imported and sold China diesel generator sets. And when I say a set, what that really means is the engine, the diesel engine, combined with the generator, the actual electric generator, and the control system, and the fuel tank, and the cooling system, etc. So if you have one of those, they were considered quite durable. For a Chinese product, they were considered quite durable, quite excellent, and very heavy, and they were great. They were absolutely great. And when you got them, you got spare parts with them. They were advertised on a lot of magazine covers, preparedness type, Mother Earth, and so forth. Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back right after these few short commercial announcements. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. His practice is in Springfield, Missouri, and if you'd like to call his office, it's 417-5... Dr. Shealy, 417-521... Why don't you tell us? Yeah, I dropped my card here. Yeah, what's your number?
417-351-5221.
Yeah, there it is. 417-351-5221, class. Normally I've got that memorized, but I just had a memory lapse for just a second. 417-351-5221 is the number of his clinic. Dr. Shealy, you had mentioned over the years cataracts, and we could put some drops of oil or a drop in each eye. Would you tell us, please, exactly what that recommendation is medically? Because I've gotten some questions, and I'd like our class to hear that from you.
Well, this came from my contact with Edgar Casey and the Association for Research in Enlightenment in 1972 when I visited there for the first time. And, of course, he recommended castor oil packs on the after and all kinds of other uses. But it was recommended by him, and I have been using it and recommending it for now at least 40 years. And I've had reports from scores of people that the cataracts have disappeared using that. And I've had 2 dog owners claim that their dogs got rid of the cataracts, and 1 goat owner that her goat got rid of its cataracts using castor oil in the eye. Now, I do recommend United States Pharmacopoeia, that is, castor oil that you buy at a pharmacy.
Okay. And so what is the method of applying the castor oil USP?
Well, you get a sterile dropper, and you just put 1 drop. You open the eyelid, hold them open, and you can see the tip of the dropper, and you just drop 1 drop into your eye, and that's it.
Okay, and that would be just before bedtime, right?
Well, the reason I recommend that is it does make your vision a little blurry for about a half an hour because it's an oil. It doesn't harm, it doesn't hurt, but you don't want to go walking around during the daytime with a blurry eye.
Right. Now, will we find that there's some, in the corners of our eyes closest to our nose, will we find some crusty stuff as a result of this, or will we find no indication that the castor oil's been there at all?
Well, to be quite honest, for the first time in 40 years, I saw an optometrist in February, and he said I had early cataracts. I have no symptoms. But now, since late February, I have been using 1 drop every night in both eyes. I don't have any symptoms from it at all. After I blink a few times, I take a Kleenex and just gently wipe off any excess and go about my business.
Okay. And how long does it take to realize results doing this?
3 to 6 months, depending on how early the cataracts are.
Okay, so 3 to 6 months. Every day we do it once per day, before bedtime, preferably.
Well, that's what I recommend. Now, for me, I do it in the morning, and the reason is I'm going to now spend 90 minutes doing physical exercise where I don't need acute vision, and so it doesn't bother my eyes, my vision much at all. But for most people who are going to be reading or using a computer, I wouldn't use it if you're going to do that. I wouldn't use it except in the evening.
Okay. How about vitamin B complex for vision? Is there any link between improving vision and the consumption of vitamin B complex?
Well, slight. Obviously, you've got to have adequate. But vitamin A and vitamin E are more essential for vision than vitamin B.
Okay. And what is your recommendation in the amount of vitamin A and vitamin E?
Well, I recommend astaxanthine. It's the strongest form of vitamin A. And I recommend for the average person, if you're doing just to protect your eyes, 10 to 20 milligrams, depending on your weight. If you weigh 150, I would go to, or more, I would go to 20 milligrams. The vitamin E is tocotrienol, not tocopherol. And the tocotrienol is 100 milligrams of alpha gamma. Gamma delta. Tocotrienol, gamma delta.
Okay. And how much of that? 100 milligrams?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, vitamin E, vitamin A, and castor oil, USP, 1 drop in each eye when you don't have to do something that requires sharp vision for a little while. We'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, normshealy.com. Dr. Shealy's a medical doctor. Dr. Shealy, floaters in the eye, is that something that castor oil USP can dissolve?
That I do not know. I've heard no personal experience or confirmation of that one.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we continue?
Nope, I'm open sesame.
Oh, okay. One of the things that I do before I get into my vehicle, let's say I go to a store that has a big parking lot, and I come out of the store and I'm going to get in my vehicle, put the items that I bought vehicle, and then off I go, whether it be my truck or a car. I always walk around the vehicle. I look to, I walk around the passenger side. I look on the front. I look under the wheels. I look to see if I have a flat tire. I look to see if any fluids have leaked out. I look to make sure that it's safe for me to get in the car and go. Back up. I make sure if I'm approaching the car from the front or the truck from the front, I walk around the back. As I look at the passenger side, I look at the front, the back, make sure that I'm not going to run over anything, make sure there's no little carts, broken bottles, flat tire, whatever it is. I want to make sure that I know about it before I get in my car. I don't see very many people doing that. Because I know that if I have a flat tire, and it's entirely possible to have a flat tire. I could have ridden over a nail or a screw or some sharp thing in the road, whether it be a rock or a piece of metal or whatever. I could have had a slow leak, and by the time I get out of the store, I have a flat tire. Now the best place to fix that flat tire is right where I am, not moving from where I was. So that's why I do that. But I was wondering how your book is coming along with kinds of things like that. Isn't that common sense, Dr. Shealy, what I do?
Well, I was just thinking, Vincent, that you are among the very, 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 very small percentage of truly conscientious people. I mean,
it's not like I was born this way. I don't think. I mean, there may be some genetics involved, but I look at things that can go wrong, and I want to minimize their impact on me. And I know that it's way easier for me to change the tire right where it is, because when I park my vehicle, I park it in such a place that if I have a flat tire, I can get access to the trunk if it's a car, the under the bed if it's a truck, and the tools, and have enough room. And I try to park I even park uphill. So if the parking lot is sloped, I park uphill because I know that gravity works the same way on all shopping carts, and that they will want to go toward the bottom of the hill. And so when people just leave them wherever the heck they want, I want to make sure that those shopping carts don't go flying and accelerating down the hill into my car. So I park at the top of the hill, where gravity isn't going to help these shopping carts go toward my vehicle. I mean, these are just things that I do just as a matter of course, and I don't mind walking that extra distance, whatever that extra distance is, because I want to be away from people who are careless.
But Vince, you also have good health habits.
Well, I try. I try.
You don't smoke. You're not overweight. You eat plenty of fruits and vegetables. You exercise regularly. You don't have to do special exercise. You're physically active, and you sleep normally. I mean, those are the basics that 97.3% of Americans have one or less of. And you go way beyond those.
Well, and so do you, Dr. Shealy. I mean, it's so basic. It's not like you have to study a lot to just do these normal things. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is, are you seeing this in your life? I don't mean you. I mean people who you observe. Are you seeing a lack of commitment, a lack, well, of course, paying attention? But let me give you an example. Let's say a person were having a barbecue. Okay, so person says, "Hey, I'm having a barbecue. Would you like to come on over? It'll be not this Saturday, but next Saturday at 3:00." Okay, and then you would expect something like, "I'll tell you what, I think we can make it," or "No, I can't make it," or "You know what? I'll check with my spouse. I'll check with my wife, my husband, and I think it's good, and I'd love to be there. So yeah, you can put me down, but I'll let you know tomorrow for sure." I mean, that's the kind of thing I would expect. But what actually happens is nothing like that. I'll let you know. That's kind of what happens. Would you like to come to the barbecue 2 weeks from now on Saturday at 3:00? At our place. I'll let you know. And then they don't let you know. Now, I haven't had one in a long, long time, so it's not like this just happened to me. But the response is, "I'll let you know." but they don't let you know. So then you don't know how much food to have. So if you have a wedding and you say, hey, listen, please RSVP, it doesn't happen. And then you don't know how many seats, and the caterer doesn't know what to do, or whoever's making the meal or the restaurant, they don't know. And it's frustrating because people don't want to commit. But it's not just that. It's when we had our expo. And I would say, look, we're going to have an expo in 9 months. And it's going to be at this location, and I have to commit to 46,000 square foot of space. And so if you'd like to come, I'd like to know. Well, and then we get the answer, well, I don't know. Okay, when will you know? Well, call me a month before. I can't call you a month before because I have to reserve it now. I have to reserve the space now. Well, I don't know. I'll let you know. So what I'm, and then the decorating company that provides the pipe and drape, they want to know. Why? Because they've got some blue pipe and drape, they've got some red, some yellow, some black, and some white. And they want to know how much you need of which color. And you say, well, I can't tell you because they won't tell me. So nobody knows. So decorators can't hold it for you. The venue, the convention center, won't hold it for you. And it's all because of the lack of commitment. And then if you fast forward that to doctor's appointments, so many of these large practices, I'm talking like hospitals and dentists and things like that, they will have their automated system call you to remind you because people can't remember to show up for their own doctor's appointment.
Well, as a matter of fact, the day before, yes, Friday before Monday, our receptionist calls every appointment for the next day. Mm-hmm. And even then we have a 5 to 10% no-show.
And that's what I'm talking about. And is it okay when you do finally get a chance to talk to those people that didn't show? Are they bona fide reasons? Did they forget? Did they forget to set their?
They never have an excuse. And Vince, at least 60% of patients do not follow the doctor's advice. Not that I always agree with the doctor's advice, but they go there that sometimes and often pay some kind of fee, and yet 60% do not follow the advice or take it the way it's supposed to.
I got to tell you, I have almost, literally, Dr. Shealy, I'm not exaggerating, I have almost stopped giving advice. So it used to be, I'm serious, it used to be that I would see someone with a flat tire or an almost flat tire, and or some guy in, as simple as some guy walking through the store with his shoes untied, laces, and I'd say, hey, your shoes untied. And they look at me like, what's the matter with you? I know my shoes untied. or they would get in their car and they, I'd say, your tire's really low, and it's really low, and it looks like your tire's going to pop off your rim. You might want to take care of that right away. They look at me and they don't say anything. They drive off. So, I mean, that's just two small examples. So I've now gotten to the point where I don't want to give anybody advice because they think I'm offending them or I'm inserting myself in their lives. And so I don't do it anymore. I don't have any. I just look at them and I go, geez, that's dumb. And I just keep going. Really. I don't want to offend them. I'm being polite. Actually, I think they're too dumb to understand what's happening. So I just go on my way. And my son said the most amazing sentence. He said there was a television show called the Beverly Hillbillies. I think it was back in the 1960s, and it was literally about these hillbillies. And their last name was Clampett, the Clampett family. And my son said to me, we were in the vehicle over the weekend. He said, "Dad, he can't help the Clampetts." and you know our boys, and so and it's true. You can't help them because they are not interested in improving their situation. So I was just wondering, if you're seeing this, and it sounds like the answer is you are. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. In other words, in my opinion, and I'm being exquisitely conservative, 80% of all illness is the result of human misbehavior, that is, lack of paying attention to normal health advice. That's simple. And actually, probably another 15% or more is because of government nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you for a fact that in the 1960s, when I was a child, I would have doctor's appointments. Most children have doctor's appointments. And I can tell you for an absolute fact, the doctor's office never, ever called our house to say, Mrs. Finelli, your son has an appointment, on Monday. Just want to remind you of that. Never happened, Dr. Shealy. Never happened. Now, if you have surgery, they remind you of surgery. And who isn't thinking about surgery that's coming up, right? You know when it's going to be. You know the date, the time, the location. If you're having surgery, you know it. If you've got how can you not know that you have a dentist appointment? How's that possible? How's that possible? But yet, I don't know. We have calendars here, and we actually have redundant calendars. So but whatever it is, if it's important, it's on the calendar. And it's on 2 calendars at least, because it's important. And then we check the calendars. Now, these are not electronic calendars. These aren't things that also act as cell phones. No. These are physical calendars. So it's a constant reminder to us. There's even a calendar on the refrigerator so the whole family can see it. So we have our calendars as a backup and one on the refrigerator. I don't know. When we come back, Dr. Norm Shealy, would you be able to share some of your latest thoughts about your latest book, Who Killed Common Sense? And just a few highlights of the topics that are in Who Killed Common Sense. Dr. Shealy's newest book. He's I don't think it's hit the street yet, but pretty soon. Looks like we're going to get a preview of some of the topics in Dr. Shealy's newest book, Who Killed Common Sense. Dr. Shealy, what number book is this, 36?
36 or 7. I forget sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. So please share with us, if it's all right with you, some of the the highlights.
Well, I start with the common sense, the fact that the third, at the very least, the third leading cause of death in this country is the medical system. And that's published in the Medical Journal of the American Medical Association. And there's a book, of course, that came out right after that says actually they were wrong. It was 3 times what it was. It really is the number 1 cause of death. But even if it's only number 3, that's the number 1. You need to be careful about everything that goes on in medicine. So the top of my list is, in chronic disease, there is no circumstance under which I would even seek conventional medicine. And, in fact, this weekend, my daughter was telling me about a friend of hers who'd wound up without a medical advisory and unable to take care of herself. Well, I updated mine, which was officially signed in 2013, and I want to be certain that if I am unable to speak, don't take me anywhere. Let me die by myself. I don't want to go to a hospital. I don't want to be pumped full of crap at a hospital. I want to die. I don't mind dying. I just don't want to be tortured in the last days of life. Now, that's the foundation. Then, of course, we talk about how do you develop common sense, conscientiousness, if you don't have it. And I give some of the research that, and actually I was writing a book with a couple of other friends, Dr. Abernathy, the chair of conscientious psychology. So we go into that. And I have a wonderful friend way back in Virginia who writes marvelous poetry. I think, she could write 150,000 pages, I think, of wonderful poetry. And so she's going to contribute some common sense poetry. And then we talk about love and spirituality as the foundation for ongoing life.
And when you talk about love and spirituality, are you talking about, husband and wife, man and dog, woman and dog? And I mean, like I have an English Mastiff, TJ, Thomas Jefferson, and he can be walking near me, and I'll say, TJ, may I have a hug? And he'll come on over and he'll sit down next to me, and he'll wait for that hug. Are you talking about those wonderful relationships we have with our animals, the kind of that I can go out among the cows and I could say, come on, and they all look up and they want their hugs and they want their heads rubbed. Is that what you're talking about? And all of those kinds of things as well?
All of those kinds of things. Love is the desire to like and help other people, period. That's all it is. And you need a network of friends. And a network of friends is people you know well enough that you can ask questions of if you have a problem, or just share experiences if you just want a little support. All of those things.
And do you find that there are those people who shut out everyone else's advice? And I'm talking about that network of friends where some would say, you know what, I don't want to hear what you think. I'll just make up my own decisions. Have you seen that?
Oh yes, of course. And it is most often in people who are very depressed or very anxious. They've shut out everybody's advice except the worry-warding in their own brain. And, of course, that's where detachment is so important. As you know, my favorite word, attitude in the world is, if I can't change it, who cares? Let it go.
Yeah, that's where I am. And so are you having a ceremony for those of us who have completed all the requisites for your certification in detachment?
That's a wonderful idea, Vince. I think we should have an annual detachment ceremony.
That's kind of what I'm saying. I think that would be. What kind of a barbecue would that be? That'd be pretty cool. So I'm really serious.
Let's do it. Let's do it pre-Christmas.
Yeah.
Let's start an annual. Thank God for my friends and our ability to detach from the world.
Yeah, from those who would be certainly willing to suck the life out of us. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, now that I rethink it one more time, I have a birthday party most Decembers. I think we'll just do it then. The detachment party.
That sounds wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. All right, Dr. Shealy, and I'll be right. Class, you can do the same thing right in your neighborhood, right in your neck of the woods. You can have an annual one. You can do it as a barbecue. I love it. I really do. And that was not rehearsed. That was spontaneous. Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back right after these few short commercial announcements and news. And class, Warren Wilhelm Jr. Who is he? We'll tell you when we come back. All set? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Norm Shealy's with us. His phone number at his clinic in Springfield, Missouri is 417-351-5221. 417-351-5221. I mentioned the name Warren Wilhelm Jr. And Dr. Shealy sent me an email about Warren Wilhelm Jr. And that was his given name, but he decided that he was going to change his name. He was born in 1961, and he was going to change his name to Bill de Blasio. He's the mayor of New York City, and he's running for president. So his real name, Warren Wilhelm Jr., the name he decided that he was going to use is Bill de Blasio. So according to the internet, when he was 22, he adopted his mother's surname. and he wanted to embrace his Italian heritage. So he hyphenated his name to Warren de Blasio Wilhelm in 1983, and then he decided that he was going to formally adopt the name Bill de Blasio in 2001. So this guy has had 3 names, and he wants to be CEO of the United States of America. So, Dr. Shealy, thank you for sending me that information, and I just did a little bit more research on it. But that's the story of Bill de Blasio. Can you imagine that? 3 names over time. And I have this other email that you sent me that with Bill Clinton sitting in the Oval Office in a blue dress with red high heels. and then someone enhanced that and put Bill Clinton sitting on Barack Hussein Obama's lap. And then it's further enhanced by another Democrat. This is like the trio of Democrats. 3 guys have caused nonstop problems for the United States. And then you got Jumpin' Joe, the plagiarist Biden, kind of kissing Barack Obama's head. So Joe Biden's kissing Barack Hussein Obama on the head, and Bill Clinton sitting on Barack Hussein Obama's lap in a blue dress with high heels. Quite interesting, and it kind of shows us how sick we have become in the United States, where pretty much looks like anything goes now. There was a story about this young couple, and they knew each other in high school, and so they decide to get married. But this 25-year-old girl comes into their lives, and they decide that, you know what, she should be part of the marriage too. So now we have this green-haired gal, and I mean literally green hair, long green hair, tattooed to beat the band. And then there's this red-haired gal, tattooed to beat the band. And then there's this guy, this lazy-appearing guy, and the 3 of them are going to get married soon. And they want the whole world to know. So now it's all over social media that they're going to get married. And what do the parents have to say? Well, parents, what would you expect them to say? They say, you know, I think that's a good idea. We should do it too. So
that's why we need an annual detachment ceremony. Detached from the insanity of the world.
And so if you want to meet them, I'm sure you can find them or someone just like them at the restaurant of your choice. They will be your waiter or waitress, or cook. I can't believe it. I mean, this is just, it's beyond anything that makes any sense to me. So the 3 of them are going to get married. I can't believe. So what does that mean? Does that mean homosexuality is in their marriage? Well, I guess it would be. Or is that this fluid sexuality where, well, you know, it depends on, you know, what time is it, you know?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if the lefties promoted that next.
Yeah, but I'm not exaggerating. So this threesome is going to, well, California, I mean, so they're gonna get married. They literally are. You know, our son was at the supermarket over the weekend, and he was buying something. There was a little line to get the item that he was going to buy, and in front of him was this shopping cart. But you know, to make it fun for these young millennials, they have shopping carts that look like race cars. So you put the millennials in there, and then you kind of push them around, and they think that, you know, they're special because they're in a race car. Now, when I was growing up, they didn't have anything like that. If mom wanted to put you in a cart, they had this little seat on top of the cart, and they had these 2 holes where your legs could go through, you know, if you wanted to do that. But now they've improved it to the point where these shopping carts look like little race cars. They have these plastic race car looking sides, but it's still a cart. But now it's a bigger cart, and it's more in the way as they push through the supermarket. But this particular cart had these screaming little monsters in there. And so my son said, the guy was behind our son, and he said, "You go ahead. You go ahead. I'll go after you." And the guy goes, "No. You go ahead." My son's like, "You go ahead." And my son was going to say, "I'm going to get out of line. You go ahead of me. I'll come back when the screaming stops." And you guys have left. But these young parents are totally out of tune with what little monsters they've brought into public. And I'll tell you what, if I had raised them, I'd be embarrassed. I wouldn't bring them out where people could see them. I'd keep them, out of the public view. But I'm seeing this more and more and more. Young people having these little gimme young people with tantrums. Dr. Shealy, what do we do about this? Do you have any idea? I mean, electric shock therapy, incarceration, handcuffs, straitjackets. I mean,
well, again, Vince, you are in the detachment mode because there's nothing we can do about this kind of nonsense. It has taken over the United States and to some extent the world, but we lead the way with craziness. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And much as I would like to change it, much as I'd like to stop, never again see someone walking down the sidewalk or into the crosswalk talking on a cell phone, etc. Much as I would hope nobody would ever be sending a message on a cell phone while they're driving. All these things, I have to detach from it. Otherwise, it would waste too much of my time.
Yeah. I was talking with one of our instructors, Steve Elkins, and he mentioned that he went into a store, and it was kind of a store that sells lots of things, including furniture. And there are these little darling children jumping all over the furniture and slobbering all over it. And he went up to him and said, the equivalent of, are you planning on buying this? Because someone's going to buy it, and I don't think they want your slobber all over it. And so what I'm finding out is some of our instructors are sending a very clear message to these people who are totally out of touch with reality. And that's what I do. That's what Joey does. That's what Steve Elkins does. And I'm sure there are others. Because obviously the parents aren't paying attention. So this California throuple, I guess that's a new word. It's a THROUPLE. Instead of a couple, it's a three-uple. And it's California couple throuple reveal that they are set to marry after 6 years together. One admits her parents now want to know, they want to try this after seeing how happy their daughter is in this relationship. So Jimmy Silva, 35, and Chacha Vavoom of 31 have been together since graduating high school, and they were joined by Summer Peltier, 25, 6 years ago. So the three of them are planning on getting married, and it looks like all three sets of parents, are involved in this. Three sets of parents. Can you imagine? So one of these gals, they're all tattooed. They're all risky behavior types. And the guy's tattooed. The guy looks like and he's kissing the three-way kisses, two-way kisses. It's absolutely disgusting. And of course, the brides are going to be in white wedding gowns.
I think they should be a black, but that's just my opinion.
It's really, really, really awful. But that's one item in news. Here's another one. So this woman who was bullied for being the fattest girl in school now tips the scales at 390 pounds, and she makes $1,200 a year part-time, slapping her stomach and gorging on food. So this office administrator, Hazel, she's 29, from Nashville, earns an extra $12,000 a year because she will slap her belly for fans, and she'll eat as many as 10,000 calories in one sitting on camera. So now what she does is she films herself gorging, and this gal literally has a stomach that I can't describe it. It would look like a 2 sacks of 50 pounds of potatoes. That's what her stomach looks like, hanging off the front of her body. She's sitting with her legs apart, and she's got, it looks like a dress or a pair of shorts or something like that on, but she's got her legs apart, and it looks like inside this covering is 2 sacks of 50 pounds of potatoes each. And I'm not exaggerating. I am not. And this gal is so proud that she makes extra money saying, look at me, and watch me eat. Of course, she has tattoos also. Of course. How do you address that? I mean, what can you say?
That's where I detach. My response to all the craziness is, what else can I do?
Yeah. So, class, if we're not making this up, this is absolutely true. Okay, in cities where there's lots of air pollution, and air pollution is getting extremely serious. Even in London, they're saying that the amount of pollutants in the air is illegal. Now, whatever that means, I'm not quite sure. Of course, it means it's out of control, high, and you know it's like soup that you're breathing. Well, the question is air pollution turning people into violent offenders? Well, according to the Daily Mail, air pollution is making people more violent. The noxious gases, it appears, are interfering with the brain and how we think or don't think or how we act without thinking. And so crime is up. Crime is up, and there was a 13-year study, data on 86 million people in the United States. Crime is up, and with the increase in air pollution. We'll be right back and talk more about that. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us, medical doctor, and we're talking about air pollution and crime. Dr. Shealy, there was a study, University of Minnesota and Colorado State University, and they found that there is a link between air pollution and violent crime, not air pollution and nonviolent crime, not air pollution and shoplifting, but air pollution and violent crime. And they think that there are pollutants in the air that cause people to be more aggressive, more violent. What are your thoughts on that being a possibility?
Oh, obviously. I mean, my God, it can kill you. It can cause cancer. It can give you chronic lung disease, et cetera, et cetera. So certainly it can change your brain because actually that toxicity replaces some of the oxygen.
Mm-hmm. And you know, there are metals, heavy metals in the air. It used to be that one of those heavy metals was lead, tetraethyl lead, because the gasoline refining companies found out that if they added ethanol, well, ethanol can't be patented, but they can patent lead as an anti-knock, anti-ping agent for higher compression engines, so that they'd run better. So they were able to patent and use tetraethyl lead rather than ethanol as an anti-knock agent. So we've all been breathing, you know, those of us who have been around since maybe the 1920s or so, there's been tetraethyl lead added to fuels. It continued until we had unleaded fuel. That's what we're all using, you know, for the last couple of decades is unleaded, regular and unleaded premium. But we've been breathing lead from the exhaust pipe of the cars in front of us for half a century at least. And what comes out of the smokestacks of buildings, who knows? What comes out of the hospital smokestacks, who knows? You know, the incinerators. Hospitals have incinerators. They burn a lot of plastics and they burn a lot of what's not reusable in hospitals. So living around a hospital smokestack is kind of a crazy thing, if you ask me. But heavy metals, Dr. Shealy, I mean, all kinds of metals are in the air. Which ones are the most concern to you?
Well, let me think. sulfur, of course, because you can smell it, but it also is not good. Obviously, lead.
It's an irritant, absolutely irritant.
Yeah, lead, arsenic, mercury, boron. In fact, anything's not supposed to be there can't be good.
How about zinc? If we'll call them tin cans, they're actually steel cans, but a lot of them are lined with either plastic lining, or they're lined with zinc, which is kind of a galvanized lining. Maybe some of them are aluminum, and so they go into the incinerators as well.
Oh,
There's no way that all the aluminum cans and all those, traditional tin cans and plastics don't end up in the incinerators. And by the way, yes.
I think everybody in Springfield and surrounding areas should mail to City Council all of their trash. That's one. We can't do anything else about City Council and Springfield to get rid of fluoride. So suppose 250,000 people suddenly started, at Greene County more or less, suddenly started mailing all their trash to City Council. I'm going to announce it on my radio show on Thursday.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Shealy, I've got to caution you about your radio show.
You mean I might be canceled by your friend?
Well, I did that. I did something like what you're talking about. For 7 months, I gave out the city manager's phone number, and I'd say, call Greg Burris. I'd give out his city hall phone number, and I'd say, tell him he's fired for poisoning us, putting fluoride in the water. And I got the message that through the front office at the radio station that we tied up the telephone lines at City Hall. And the next thing I know, 7 months later, they had it with me, and they wouldn't let me come back on the radio. So be careful. You're always welcome here, though. You're always welcome here. We'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and if you'd like to go to the website, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. And if you'd like to send him an email, it's norm@normshealy.com. Telephone number in Springfield, Missouri, Central Time, during normal business hours, 417-351-5221. Dr. Shealy, last week we reported this massive fraud, the largest fraud ever in the history of the United States regarding organic food sales. And there was this Missouri farm. Naturally, this guy was from the corrupt state of Missouri. And a guy named Constant, that was his last name, Constant. So this guy falsely labeled corn as organic. Corn grown in the United States, he labeled it as organic. And soybeans, he labeled them as organic. And so this guy's sales amounted to 7% of organic corn grown in the U.S. in 2016 and 8% of organic soybeans grown. Overall, from 2010 to 2017, he sold more than 11.5 million bushels of grain. That's 3,600 rail cars worth of grain. And so this was used as feed for chickens and cattle. So those products, when they were marketed, they were advertised as organic. So in the case of buying organic food, chicken, beef, maybe not. And so this guy did incalculable damage to the organic industry, because now people like me have zero confidence that products labeled as organic actually are organic. And so what is organic? Well, it's grown without chemicals and pesticides. And this guy lied. He lied so big.
Well, I haven't trusted the word organic for the last 30 years. I wouldn't pay 10 cents extra for a label of organic because I don't trust them.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with you, Dr. Shealy. So here's the question. If you want to eat well, if you want to eat without pesticides, if you want to eat without Roundup, which is almost impossible, what do you do? What do you do, Dr. Shealy?
I grow my own.
In your own, right.
I mean, I have a 50 by 50 vegetable garden. It produces more than I can eat.
I'll bet you're eating a lot of tomatoes now.
Fair amount. Actually, my favorite and best producer of the entire summer is okra.
Mm-hmm.
And bell peppers. I think they've outproduced everything else 2-1.
Well, that's fantastic. In our garden, it's tomatoes. It's tomatoes everywhere, and so I'm eating tomatoes every day. I mean, all day.
Well, yeah.
And by the way, there's something tomatoes and lettuces and peppers, greens and reds, and I got to tell you, I feel better when I eat lots and lots of that. Lots of vegetables. I feel better. I have to eat more often because it's like what do they say? It's like Grant going through Richmond, pretty quick. But that's what it's like. But I feel so much better. Is there a medical reason why I feel better? Is it the enzymes?
It's the antioxidants. More, I think it's enzymes, it's vitamins, it's minerals, but number one is antioxidants.
Mm-hmm. So the word to the wise class, I guess, is what we're saying is if you think that you're eating organic because the label says so, the answer is probably not. Roundup is it's in the rain, it's in the soil, it's in the air, it's everywhere. And Monsanto, corporate headquartered, I was in Missouri. I don't know if it's moved to Europe because of Bayer buying Monsanto. I don't know where the corporate headquarters is now, but we have destroyed the lives of little animals living in the ground with the herbicides, the insecticides. It's absolutely wrong. And bees, and I believe that bees are being killed because of cell towers. I really believe that. I believe that the navigation systems of the bees, their antennae are about the length of the cell phone signal, and it messes them up, and they can't figure out where they're going, and they die. I believe that's a big part of it. I can't prove it. I don't have the necessary equipment to prove it, but it all makes sense to me. Dr. Shealy, you have any thoughts on why these bees are dying?
Well, it's poison. Obviously, the government is poisoning the world. And, of course, have you heard about oak mite?
Tell us your thoughts on oak mite.
Well, oak mite apparently is spreading in the Ozarks, and it causes a lot of itching and sometimes terrible rashes. An inch or more red, swollen rash. But at least itching. And it's apparently growing wild here in the Ozarks right now.
Yeah, it's the internet says oak mites are tiny microscopic insects that live and hatch in oak trees and feed on small midget fly larvae. The bite from an oak mite can create a large red welt on humans and sometimes misdiagnosed as chigger bites. No products exist that will completely get rid of oak mites from your trees and from your yard. Dr. Shealy, I recently bought a stereo microscope. I found one used on the internet, and because I want to look at microscopic things. Going forward, I wanted one that was not one dependent on software. I didn't want a digital one. I wanted an inexpensive, top quality microscope. Do you use a microscope in your world, Dr. Shealy?
I don't. Obviously, it could be useful, especially if we looked at live blood under a dark field microscopic image, because it can tell you all kinds of things you can't figure out any other way.
And what do you know? What power you would use? What type of magnification you would use for?
I believe it's only 100 but it might be 1,000. I'm not sure because I don't have one.
Okay. Well, I bought a microscope on the internet, and it's made by American Optical, and this would be a laboratory grade instrument. And I paid about $85 shipped for it. So it's used. And but it is, I believe it's a top of the line piece of gear. And I'll give you the specs on that if you're interested. And I'll, over the next couple of weeks, I'll have more experience using it. But I did some research, and American Optical, AO for short, seems to be a pretty good microscope. And of course, there are others like Nikon. But I wanted to stay with an American company, and it really looks like it's top of the line. One eyepiece would have been fine, but I found this one. I have a feeling that this is going to serve pretty well, and I'll let you know what my thoughts are. So
Wonderful.
If you want to look it up. Excuse me, Dr. Shealy?
I said wonderful. Great.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
I haven't used one very often since high school. And, that's something that we seem to be lacking. How come we're not looking through microscopes in high school today? How come? Why not? And where do these microscopes come from? If you go to eBay and you type in high school, used high school microscope, you'll find them. Why? They don't wear out. Why would they be for sale? Because the educational system seems to think we don't need to teach things like this. We can just go to a web page and we can look at what you'd look at under a microscope. You don't have to look at it for yourself. Just look at the screen. That's ridiculous. How can we get experience? If you want to learn how to change your oil, you can watch a video on YouTube. But if that's all you do, you won't have done it, and you won't know exactly how it all works. You'll have a concept, but I'll bet you'd have a lot of trouble if you didn't do it and experience it for yourself. So why is it that we're getting away from hands-on and going to keyboards and mice? Why are we doing that? It's just like one of our instructors, Marty Barrett. She's a biology teacher, and her university is forcing her to write lessons so that the students don't have to use microscopes. They don't have to have hands-on. They can dissect with their mouse rather than dissect in the lab. Dr. Shealy, can you imagine learning medicine from a screen and taking a multiple choice test after going to that class? Can you imagine doing that as compared to what you did?
Well, I prefer the real thing.
Yeah. Rates of emergency heart attack treatment to clear blocked arteries are higher when levels of air pollution spike. So in Poland, doctors at Krakow have figured out that they looked at 16,000 patients, and they figured out that more patients undergoing angioplasty occur when levels of air pollution spike. Can you imagine that? Same thing you mentioned before. Air pollution is killing us. Any comments about that, Dr. Shealy?
Well, my number one comment about everything related to government is I personally think every officer in any position throughout the country should be voted out every election. If they were not allowed to stay in and rerun, we might improve things.
I was at a meeting, at the annual meeting, a very large meeting, with the owners of a corporation, and they said, "Any business from the floor?" And so there were thousands of people in this room. I raised my hand. They ignored me. I stood up. They ignored me. I walked to the middle of the floor, right underneath where the speaker was speaking. So he was on stage. I walked up. I was right in front of him. I mean, 4 feet below him, but right in front of him. 10 feet away. At the most, 10 feet away. And he said, okay, what is it? And I said, term limits. Term limits. You can't run forever. And do you know, I was shouted down from the members in the audience on the floor.
Oh, I believe you. I mean, I talk about fluoride almost at least once or twice a month on my radio show, and there's not any response whatsoever.
Right. Right. Well, I believe that we're going down. I believe we're going down because of our own ignorance, our own unwillingness to take action. It's too hard to think. And so, because we are not proactive, because we don't have conscientious behavior, because of that, we're going down. I'm talking about the United States going down. We'll be right back. I want to talk about the pill. Dr. Norm Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, there's a story on the internet about this teenager who claims she almost died after taking the pill that caused her to suffer a stroke that left her fighting for her life. She was in the hospital for 4 weeks. I believe she was 15 at the time she started taking it. Then when she was 16, she was rushed to the hospital. And doctors, sent her away saying it's nothing. And her parents brought her back to the hospital. And they thought she might have meningitis, life-threatening infection. But they discovered that she had a rare form of a stroke. And this was attributed to her taking the birth control pill. So she had trouble with her vision, and she had blood clots as a result of a stroke and in her brain, and it caused her to not be able to talk for a couple days. She couldn't speak. She could only use her thumb, for a thumb up or thumb down. And they traced this back to the pill. And you have been warning people for as long as I've known you about the pill and how dangerous this is. So this poor young gal on birth control at, I believe, 15 years old, almost died as a result of risky behavior for a 15-year-old for sure, but being on the pill. Dr. Shealy, your thoughts?
Well, she will have trouble the rest of her life. If she recovers from this, she will have poor fertility ever afterwards, even after 5 years off the pill if she recovers. And it causes more harm. I mean, from the very beginning, I'm talking about in the 50s when this crap came on the market, I've been against it, and I will remain to my deathbed saying this is one of the worst inventions of the millennium.
Well, I remember the terms modern medicine and miracles of modern medicine. We're talking about thalidomide, which eased the discomfort of pregnancies at the cost of having children born without arms. So their hand would be sticking out of their shoulder, or born without legs, so their feet would be sticking out of their pelvis. I mean, all kinds of horrific birth defects, of which I have seen personally. I have seen people who've had these birth defects as a result of thalidomide. I met a guy whose hand, literally, his hand came out of his shoulder. Not his hand came out of his wrist, it came out of his arm. His hand, there was no arm. It was just shoulder to hand. Just take that arm right out of the anatomy. I've seen it firsthand, in person. And so, according to this article I'm reading on Daily Mail, can the pill cause blood clots? And then it says contraceptive pills contain estrogen. It may cause the blood to clot more easily. This could easily lead in a clot in the leg, known as deep vein thrombosis, or the lung, which is called a pulmonary embolism. Blood clots can also trigger heart attack or stroke. The risk of developing blood clot from the pill is very small, so they say. Nonetheless, it's unlikely a doctor will prescribe the contraceptive if the woman has two or more of the following factors. Number one, age 35 or over. 2, smokes or quit in the past year. 3, is very overweight. 4, has migraines or high blood pressure. 5, has a blood clot or stroke before, had a blood clot or stroke before. Next, has a close relative who developed a clot before 45. And next, has been immobile for a long time, such as wheelchair users. That's what they say. If you are have any of those, 2 or more of those factors, no pill for you. However, there are a lot of women who are on the pill.
Oh yeah.
Why?
Well,
aren't there safer alternatives?
Yeah, it's called a diaphragm with spermaticidal gel or cream. It works well, far, far, far better than a condom.
So there you have it. I'm hearing Dr. Shealy saying you're putting yourself at an unnecessary risk if you are on the pill. And what about birth defects, Dr. Shealy? What are your thoughts about birth defects as a result of being on the pill?
Oh, yeah. Everything's worse, including that.
And what are the lifelong associated complications with being on the pill? So, once a person stops the pill, what continues? What are there increased risks of other diseases?
It upsets the vascular system more than anything. So heart disease and stroke remain increased for, I don't know how many years, 5 years or more after you stop the pill. And premature death in the long run. Those are the big ones.
Well, okay, so how about anxiety? If there are vascular problems, aren't mood swings?
Anxiety, depression.
Violent mood swings?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All part of the pharmaca mafia.
Dr. Shealy, thank you so much for being with us.
Hey, have a great day.
You too. Class above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.